Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Calvin, We the Species. Um, I lately I've been doing a temperature check because it's been flirting with 100 degrees here in New Jersey. It hasn't been fun. You don't want to go out. Although Fabian, you're probably used to this because I'm with Fabian Cruz because he's down in Texas, and it's funny. When I was beginning my writing career, Fabian, I had a cousin
Hmm.
uh, living right outside of Dallas, a small little suburban town, and I wanted to do some research, so I went down to Texas, uh, and
Okay.
and I flew down there, and I hung out with him for a couple of days. Then I got in my car and I just drove all over Texas just to experience it. I went down to the Alamo. I drove all around Texas for like 5, 6 days. Some places in the middle of nowhere, just to because I was going to write a book about Texas, which I never did. But it was fun. But the
There's a
point
lot of
being,
content.
it was like the point being was 116 degrees. They
Yeah.
had a heat wave there that and it's hot. So, but anyway, everybody, I'm with Fabian Cruz, and he's the founder of CITO Tax Resolution, and it's never been on my window about tax resolution, fortunately. But as I plunged into this and reading about this, I mean, this is a wow, the whole institution of tax resolution, because it happens a lot. And Fabian is the founder of one of the more prominent tax resolution entities in the country, CITO, and his journey quite amazing. And of course, we've discovered lots of, and I always love doing this. We just talked for like 40 minutes just to get acquainted, and we got a lot of spiritual components and commonalities, which is great. And we're going to resume this down the road to share a lot of the spiritual stuff because he's had some really fascinating things in his life spiritually. So, uh, uh, listen up. This is great, and I guess at some point everybody's going to have to deal with something like this. Not everybody, but lots of folks are going to have to deal with this, and it's fascinating to learn about this, what you can do, and what he does, and how he does it. So, listen up, everybody. We're going to learn about tax resolution, and Fabian, I'm so glad you're here. I'm glad we got put together.
Thank you.
I'm thanking Maria out there in Europe. Actually, she got us together in Europe, and
Mhm.
here we are. A Jersey
It's
guy
a
to
small
Texas.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, why don't you do a little background, and then we're gonna kind of jump in to your world.
Yeah. Well, real quick, I saw a meme recently about, how hot it is in Texas. And this person was asking, what's the weather like in Texas during the summer? And the response was, have you ever been cremated? Because it's that hot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. Yes, sir. But yeah, so I'm Fabian Cruz. I'm the founder of CITO Tax Resolution. We are a tax resolution firm. What we do is we specialize in helping individuals or business owners dealing with their back tax issues with IRS or their state tax authorities.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we've been in business for about 4 years now. Helped countless families and businesses out.
Okay. What is
Yeah.
the genesis? What is the beginning, and how did CEDO tax resolution get born?
So I love that question because it was something very personal. I received a phone call one day, and take it I was in corporate America, um, and hadn't started this company yet. And my mother was really upset. And then so we started talking, and she had actually been notified by the IRS that she and my dad, they owed a significant amount to the IRS. And the thing is, it was due to no fault of their own. They were given very poor tax advice from their tax preparer, who was everything they told them to do was wrong. And so, so what we did was we went out, because I'm helping my folks, and we found a tax resolution company to help them out. And it was more difficult to me. It seemed like working with this tax resolution company coming from corporate America, um, because there was no call continuum. It used to be a salesman. You know how important call continuum is. We talked to someone new every time we called in when we got some kind of correspondence. They'd always tell us they'll give us a call back. If we're lucky, it was 2 to 3 days. Typically, it was like a week to 10 days later. And if you're looking at the significant debt and you're stressed out, and you feel like you've lost control of your world, that's a long time to wait. And during this time, my mom would say, I feel like I've lost my life. I just want it back. And that actually has become that inspired our tagline, "You deserve your life back." So we're fortunately we're able to get all this cleared up. And I'd been, we talk about being our spirituality. I'd been praying for well over a decade that I wanted to start my own business. I never knew what. And, I tried my hand at a few things. The seeds never grew. And then after this experience, I realized in the challenges that we had with this tax resolution company, I started to think about it, and the skills I'd garnered in corporate America was like, I could do it better. So went out, got certified, learned the industry, joined a mastermind group, and then started building out a team. And
Yeah.
here we are years later with
Well,
countless success stories.
yeah. What
Yeah.
exactly is tax resolution?
Sure. So what this is we actually step in on behalf of an individual or a business owner, and we deal directly with the IRS or their state tax authority regarding these back tax issues. And this is all we focus on, and we negotiate a very favorable outcome for our clients. Yeah,
Okay.
so because what we want to do is we really want to minimize the financial impact,
Okay.
to an individual. Yes, sir.
Okay. That's your tagline. You deserve your life back, and that's what you do.
Yeah,
I'm not jumping the gun a little bit, but uh, with everything I've studied and what I'm trying to learn about you, and I would imagine now when tax people see CITO and they know uh, whoever has retained your services that they're serious about getting things fixed. So that is also a
absolutely.
part of the whole resolution picture, isn't it? When they see
So
you.
as far, yeah, I apologize. I'm not following.
Oh, in other words, what I'm saying is when the whole thing about well, you know what? I'll get to this question as we get
Okay.
further in because I know what I want
Yeah.
to ask. Because you've built a reputation when the IRS sees you and coming to defend someone, that is also part of the solution because they know that you're serious and the people are serious because they retained you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We like to joke around and say we are the IRS's worst nightmare because this is where, how do you say it, an inch wide, a mile deep? And like this is the only area that we focus in. And so most of the time, when I say most of the time, I'm saying 99% of the time, we on our team know more on our side of the phone than when we're dealing with IRS, and we're actually having to educate them like, well, no, that's actually not legal what you're trying to do.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, and so we pride ourselves on having that reputation.
Okay. Okay. That's
Yeah.
what I was trying to get out and spit out
Okay.
because as I'm absorbing all this and I'm trying to learn about this, which it's never been in my realm. So, and I thought about this with all the budget cuts, and it's in, the headlines every day and all the staff layoffs at IRS, we've heard that. What does that mean for the American tax?
Yeah. So, I love this question because I get calls every week. Um, and about people whether they should file their taxes or not, or whether they should play the wait and see what happens game, hoping it'll go away eventually. And what I share is under under budget doesn't mean non-enforcement. So the IRS, they have set numerous things up over the years where they have automations where they can take a look and automatically in their software flag have red flag things that typically wouldn't make sense. Like for example, someone who's self-employed has a high income but no entities, that's a red flag that would flag in the system. And so there's a lot of automation already built in that most people aren't even aware of, that a lot of the IRS has leaned on for the last couple of years. So it's enforcement is as strong as ever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Off topic. I'm just sitting here thinking, with the advent of a proliferative amount of AI, is AI under the covers here? Is AI present? That IRS is using AI even more to look at tax returns and find things that are irregular? Is
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, because when a lot of these systems, with their algorithms set up, to flag irregularities, and a lot of the push under the Biden administration as far as the funding for the IRS was to update systems and increase personnel, but it was really focused on those systems that were going to allow them to do more with less. So absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
and that's what I share with everyone. Under budget, under budget, lack of budget does not equal lack of enforcement.
Right. Okay. And a lot
Yeah.
of people think that and think maybe they're going to get a free ride, but no, not the case.
Yeah, I got a call. This was about a month ago, and we were working with this one individual and owed a significant amount, and he was like, he had heard on the news, that President Trump had said, he wants to do away with the IRS, which I don't know if he's actually ever said that. Um, and this individual's like, well, I'm just going to wait till the IRS goes away. And I'm like, you're not moving in the right direction, but go with God.
Okay.
So
Um,
yeah.
Fabian, how common is it anyway for people to owe back taxes?
So it's actually more common than not. So roughly there's anywhere from 8 to 10 million people a year who owe back taxes, and
Yeah.
that's the same as far as notices going out. And it's been estimated that there's about 125 billion out there in back taxes owed.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and I always share with people too is if you owe back taxes, or if you're thinking about who the profile is of that person who owes back taxes, it's not this guy who's, running a front, at a store to try to launder money. It's everyday taxpayers. Something happened and something out of their control took place, and now they end up with this large tax debt. And so, and that's where we come in to help those individuals out who are on the right side of the law, obviously, and we negotiate on their behalf.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Another interesting question. Should someone deal with the IRS themselves, or they better get some help, do it the right way?
Yeah. So the never deal with the IRS on your own. Here's why. Because their job, their mandate is to collect revenue for the IRS as fast as they can. Their job is not to tell you what your options are, and let alone what option is best for you. So I'm going to give you an example. We had this one successful salesman come in. He owed initially he owed about $120,000 in back taxes. He tried to deal with the IRS alone, and he agreed to a bunch of things he wasn't sure what he was agreeing to. And he not even doubled that. He ended up making his tax debt almost $300,000.
Wow.
Yeah, and a lot of times too, with the amount of hiring that the IRS had previously done, a lot of these people do not have a background as far as in taxation. And so with that, you almost have to educate them as far as what the proper course is. And so that's why we share with everyone, don't deal with the IRS because they're not sure what they and take it. There's a lot of great people who are employed there, but there's also a lot of people there who don't know as far as what's legal and not legal and what should and should not be done to someone who's who's dealing with back taxes.
Right. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. Um, Another interesting question. What's the difference between failing to file versus failing to pay your taxes? What's the difference?
sure. So with those two things, so the failure to file is where you don't go out and you don't file a tax return at all. Um, and then the failure to pay is where you file your tax return, you owe money, but you're not paying. Now the thing is, between those two, the greater of the sin, if you will, is the failure to file. Because that penalty, and I always have to write these down because I get my numbers backwards, is 5% per month of the unpaid tax up to 25% of the failure to file.
Wow.
Now, the failure to pay, it's only 0.5% per month, up to 25%. You're talking a massive difference between the two.
Wow.
And yeah, and what's great about failure to file, or I should say, not great about it, is the statute of limitations. That clock is never stops ticking. So if you file but you fail to pay, that clock is running. And so you actually have some more options available to you than if you didn't file at all.
So failure to file is like 10 times worse, really.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Because everybody can make a mistake. I always remember I watched The Honeymooners, you probably before your time, but it was a 50s TV show. And there was an episode about Ralph Cramden gets a notice to report to the IRS, and he panics and he's going over
Oh
everything,
yeah.
and he realizes that he had won in one of his lodges. He had won a clock. He had won a horse with a clock in it, just a little statue, and he didn't think he had to file for that. But his friend Ed Norton said,
Mhm.
"You have to file for that." So he panicked and he went in to meet with an agent and blah blah, and he was all upset and everything. And he said, "I confess, I forgot to file that as a deduction, blah blah, or an expense, and I should have. It should have been." And the guy said, "No, we called you in because you didn't sign your tax return." So it was very funny. It was a funny
Yeah.
episode, actually one of my favorite episodes. So I kind
Yeah.
of thought of you when we're talking about all this. Um, I just want to go off topic now. Take a deep breath,
Yeah.
Fabian, and a couple of things I always like to throw in. It's one of my favorite questions, and you can answer it with one or two or three answers or none, whatever you're comfortable with. But here goes. Excluding family or friends, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend a day with.
Oh,
It's an
it's,
interesting question.
yeah. Okay. So okay,
Living or
living
dead.
or dead, and not family or okay. Well,
Right.
the man, this is going back really far. So in college, I sold books door to door, and I would relocate for the summer and stay with a host family. And one summer we stayed with a lady who had she had and we would work with other universities, and it would be three people what we call to a headquarter. It would be to a house. And the lady we lived with one summer, she had lost her eyesight as an adult. And for me, I couldn't think of anything more overwhelming than not having the ability to see. Well, this woman, she she not she lost her eyesight, and she still maintained working in the library at the high school that she worked at. And she also trained other people as far as who are blind. to help them out. And she would walk every day 3 blocks to the high school. And I just remember like just the amount of energy and strength that this woman had. And I can't say that I've kept in touch with her, but I just remember being in that woman's presence and feeling like I could do
Yeah,
anything.
that's a great
Yeah, and
answer.
I would love to, yeah, I'd love to
Yeah, great answer.
just sit down with her and see how she's doing.
Great answer. It's funny. I think
Yeah.
back to my college days. We had a fraternity and we had a house mother. And when you were telling the story, I thought about her. She lived in our fraternity house, and she was a brave lady to have to endure,
Yeah.
25 crazy college kids and trying to, keep them. It's kind of a similar story to you. Um, One other cute question I always like to ask: do you have some favorite movies?
Oh, yes. So, Far and Away with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. People are like, why is that? And it's like, well, I don't really look at it as like a love story. I look more of it as like a story of someone who's, fulfilling their destiny. Tom Cruise's character coming over to the United States and then, the Great Land Rush. And he just happens to find love along the way. And so that's actually one of my favorite all-time movies. So every time it comes on, my wife laughs because I stop and I watch it.
Okay, I get it. It's funny. I
Yeah.
saw a picture of Tom Cruise this morning, hugging
Oh yeah.
Brad Pitt. It wasn't a picture; it was a little reel on Facebook. They met somewhere and they
Yeah.
they hugged, and I got a kick out of that. These two guys who are getting a little bit older, but I don't know if they ever worked together. I don't know, but yeah,
Yeah.
Tom Cruise is a Jersey boy. He he grew up about 30 miles away from me.
Okay.
Yep, a
Yeah.
lot of people don't realize Jersey's got a lot of people out there. Springsteen 2 miles down the road.
Hmm.
Pretty cool stuff. Okay, back
Yeah.
to business.
Okay.
Um, with more Americans becoming digital nomads, for lack of a better term, what should they know about taxes?
Sure. So, we're talking earlier, and I think you mentioned on here that Maria over in Europe, connected us for this podcast, and it's crazy how so much more you see Americans, they're going abroad and they're able to make a living, and they're still maintaining their citizenship, and they're traveling the world. And so we actually work with a number of individuals. Um, and the thing to really know is if you're an American citizen and you're overseas, any income you make worldwide is still subject to taxation in America. Um, there's a lot of different factors that go in, which I'm not going to go into that because we could go on and on with that. But that's the main thing is still file your taxes. Depending on the treaty of the country you're in, will be however you're taxed there. But that's the main thing. You are still an American citizen, still making money, still subject to the taxation of the IRS.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I like the and just a quick overview, a comment. You strictly do tax resolution, nothing else,
correct.
which
Yeah.
which is very refreshing. Concentrate on that.
Yeah, there's so much taking place every day as far as in this very niche segment, as far as what can be done for people who owe back taxes or not. Yeah, I always like to compare it to, if you have a common cold or any kind of health element, you're going to go to your family physician, but if you're dealing with something, with your heart, you want to go see your cardiologist. And that's the difference is, we are that specialized position, and this is all we focus on.
Yeah.
And because of that, it allows us to get a lot more accomplished and because we know more and this is our only sole focus.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
that's your specialty, and that's what you
Yeah,
concentrate
absolutely.
on. So, what could happen to someone if they don't pay taxes? I mean, I know some mafia guys got thrown into jail for tax evasion. I
Yeah.
guess you can go to prison.
Yeah, you can lose your freedom. That's definitely a worst case scenario. Your property could be levied, your assets, the IRS could take those. Also, still worst case scenario. But typically what we're seeing a lot of right now are liens are being put in place where the IRS is taking, their interest in your property, in your assets. They're taking a first position. With that, there's that presents its own challenges. If you're trying to sell a home, it could prevent the sale of a home. A lot of people that we deal with are investors, that are full-time employees who buy rental property and then they like to buy, rehab, uh, rent out and refinance. Well, if you've got a lien against you, you're not going to be able to get
Wow.
access to credit or
Yeah.
access to loans. And any investors on here, that's one of the greatest wealth builders is being able to leverage your money, especially through the bank. So with that, you're going to lose access to that ability.
Wow.
And yeah. And then also too, it's something that really big that's going on is, well, let's take for example that person who buys, refinances, and does all that with the home. Um, so let's say they can't get access to traditional refinancing. And say they go and ask for like a hard money loan from an investor. Well, a prudent investor is going to like look at the numbers of the deal. They're like, yeah, that makes sense. That's a good opportunity. A prudent investor, though, is like, okay, well, who's the man behind this deal? And if they start doing a background check, they're going to see that you have a lien against you. And a smart guy is not going to invest in someone who can't maintain their own finances. So it's going to destroy credibility also because this information does become public.
Wow.
Yeah,
So there really is no you gotta pay because there's too much.
right.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just so
Exactly.
glad I never had problems like that. Like I said, every there was no secret to my life. Every penny that I had to pay, I paid. And it's nice to be able to sleep at night. Of all the things that happen in my world, I never
Yeah.
concern myself with that because never looked for tax shelter, none of that stuff. That it was just never well, because I never really earned that kind of money to I guess warrant that kind of stuff. I'm
Yeah.
not a big time
Well,
player. I was just a simple guy. So.
we I have one client I always like to share his story, to share like it's everyday Americans that have some kind of something out of their control goes crazy. We had dealt with a farmer who his wife was dealing with cancer. He sold off part of his farm to pay for her treatments. Unfortunately, she passed away, but he was hit with a $300,000 capital gains tax. So he was doing everything above board,
Right.
and 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 he still owns three businesses: a farm, a trucking company, and a harvesting company. And so we're able to go into the IRS and show, hey, even though he has all these assets and he has money sitting in the bank, this money is earmarked for his business. So we were able to actually get this gentleman in a position where he went into what's called a do not collect situation, and the IRS is just leaving him alone. And what he did right though was he filed his taxes every year. So the statute of limitations is running, and here in about 3 years, all that's going to be a zero for him.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, so it's like so I always like sharing that story because people shouldn't be embarrassed if they get hit with the tax bill. The tax code is complicated, and sometimes things just happen that are completely out of your control. But there is help.
Yeah.
There are options out there. You just need to work with someone who knows what those options are and what the best one is.
Which is a good segue to my next question. What makes CITO tax resolution different from other companies?
Yeah, so the so you can drive down the street and you can see signs, for a CPA, tax attorney, and they'll have, like, that they help with accounting, they help with, you name it, with numbers that they can help, and they'll also have on their tax matters. Well, the thing is, we're not doing any of that. We're not helping people with their books. We're not doing annual tax preparation. Now, we do help clean up, tax returns for our clients. But our only focus is on tax resolution. So all of our continuing education, our training is just in this area. And also all of our software is specifically for tax resolution, and we've incorporated AI into this. So the name CITO is actually Latin for Swift. And I use that because a lot of things that would take a little longer, we're able to actually implement AI, and things that would take hours, we're able to do within moments.
Wow.
So it just makes the process a whole lot faster. Now, once you get to the IRS, I mean, they're going to take however much time they want, because they're the gorilla in the room. But as far as working with us, we're able to get through this process as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say hypothetically, I get a notification from the IRS. That second I get that, what do I do? What should I do?
Don't panic, because again, this is more common than not, and you have time. And then also too, don't be embarrassed, because there's so many people who will sit on this because they're embarrassed about it, and then they're afraid of the unknown. So give us a call, get us into the picture, because immediately what we're going to do is we're going to contact the IRS, and we're going to put on hold on any kind of wage garnishment or anything like that that would take place if that's coming up. So that way, we can get you time in order for us to go into our process of pulling your tax transcripts directly from the IRS to see exactly what the IRS is looking at. And then that'll allow us to see what we need to do to get someone in compliance. And then from there, we're able to figure out a permanent resolution to the situation. So those are the big things. Don't panic, and don't be embarrassed.
Okay. I like that. I
Yeah.
do like that. I laugh. I don't know if I said this before you went on air, that when I started my journalism, I was already retired. So I'm becoming a
Hmm.
journalist, and now I'm doing all these things, all these things with zero. When I was doing my journalism, I was doing it because it was a good thing to do. I had a cable TV talk show, bringing in national guests. Zero,
Yeah, that's great.
zero income, zero, because we couldn't, and I looked into it. We were in a lot of locations here in Central Jersey, including Rutgers University. And
Hmm.
when I got our TV show into Rutgers TV for the kids in the dorms, whatever, they said, you can't do any kind of advertising because it's public, and it's not commercial. So, and all this, the show that we had for 6 or 7 years, no advertisers. We could have gotten advertisers, but we didn't because we were doing a public kind of a thing. Anyway, maybe we had
Hmm.
bad advisors. So when we could have maybe gone after some commercials, some money.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, like I joked. I used to joke. I haven't paid taxes in 15 years because I never earned anything. I just keep spending to
Hmm.
do. But it's a nice journey. That I've been on. And that's why I don't need you. Apparently,
Um,
because I've never had that problem. So,
yeah.
but I mean, your world is so fascinating, and I'm so fascinated by this because it never was part of my world, but it certainly
Hmm.
exists, and you hear stories all the time, and some of the stuff is in movies, people in
Yeah.
taxes and stuff, and it's, but just listening to you has been very eye-opening. So,
Well, great.
how do people get in touch with you, Fabian?
Yeah, well, sure. Well, if anyone has found what we've discussed today beneficial and they're dealing with some issues with IRS or their state tax authorities, they're going to love this. I put together a 13 question quiz, and it's going to give them feedback as far as, you know, how it's impacted them emotionally, and then also where they're at, and then as far as where they're at with going on, what's going on with their tax situation, and then it's going to give them a couple of key pieces of advice. That's and they can find that at CITO, CITO, CITOtax.com. Or if they want to give me a call, they can reach me at 1-877 CITO Tax.
Okay, perfect.
Hmm.
Perfect,
Yeah.
perfect, perfect. Well, I don't know if you noticed, you probably didn't, uh, but I've been taking notes. I may be one of the
Oh,
first interviewers. I may be one of the first interviewers. I mean, Johnny Carson and Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel never take notes, but I've been taking notes
yeah.
on things you've been saying. So I wrote it all down just to kind of have. And your world is absolutely fascinating and needed
Yeah.
and necessary. And
Absolutely.
I'm really grateful that we had this chance to do this kind of stuff and to share this. And I'm grateful for Maria kind of putting us together. It's always kind of funny, you're in Texas and I'm in Jersey, and we had somebody in Poland putting us together. I mean, I think that's.
Yeah.
By the way, I have a by the way for you. You're a Texas guy, and
Hmm.
I got married because I met my wife at a bar in New York in 1976. I was at a bar in
Okay.
I was at a bar in New York, and I was supposed to meet a cousin. It was a big dance, and
Hmm.
it was a place called Wednesdays. Big bar scene, and I was recently divorced, and I went to this, and I was at the bar, and I was supposed to meet a cousin. She never showed up, and I was not happy about that, and I hated to be in strange places. So my drink at the time was a White Russian. So I had one, I had another
Oh,
White Russian, another
okay.
one, and I was feeling pretty good. And I called the bartender to come over, and I took a $20 bill and I threw it out on the bar. And I told the bartender, I'm from Texas, and my father has oil wells. And just at that exact second in time, you talk about spirituality and things. At that exact second in time, these two girls came over to the bar and they heard me say, I'm from Texas and my father has oil wells because I'm a big guy. Back then I was
Hmm.
bigger. And one girl said to the other, this guy over here thinks he's really cool and he ain't from Texas. And
Oh.
it kind of caught me off guard. And I'm saying to myself, who the hell does she think she is? Saying that
Hmm.
she don't know who I am. So I asked to talk to her. We went over and we sat on the side there and we got married 7 months later.
7 months later,
So
really?
yeah, 7 months
Yeah.
later. Yep. And it's all and that's you talk about the great vastness of the universe and things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I write about it in my book that 2 seconds she comes over 2 seconds later and she doesn't
Hmm.
hear me saying I'm from Texas and my father has oil wells. And then she doesn't say anything to her friend. I don't hear her say it. I don't talk to her. And the world's a little bit different because I don't know what
Yeah.
happened to me. It's strange, but it
Yeah.
was Texas, always in the middle um, of a lot of things about myself as Texas, and you're from Texas.
Yeah. Well, if there's any women that are watching this who are looking for a husband, they need to know men are attracted to a clever woman.
Okay, I like that. I like that. And that's a good
Yeah.
place to kind of sign off. So I'm officially inviting you to come back, Fabian. We can talk about a lot of different things, more tax stuff.
Yeah.
It's
We love it.
I would love that. And so I'm going to stop recording. Thank you so much. Don't leave.
Yeah.
We're
Thank
just
you.
going to do a 2-minute wrap. Thank you, Fabian. This has been great.
Yeah.